Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I've got something actually insane to show you guys. The title is not clickbait. There is, I guess, yeah, there is, it's the right terminology, an undocumented change that I assume came in the most recent build of 9.0.5 PTR to Warlocks. I don't know if you can consider Warlocks rich, but if we are, well, we're getting richer. Now, there have been a few undocumented changes over the course of alpha and beta, but I have to say this is one that I'm surprised wasn't mentioned anywhere. This one benefits Affliction, Destruction, and Demonology. So I'm going to show you here. We're going to be both on PTR. This is PTR. And we're going to be on live. I have two clients open. Live is in Fairyland, or Night Fairyland, all the little people running around. This is PTR. I'm not normally a Necrolord. There's no reason I'm playing Necrolord. Don't get excited. Necrolord's not good. Well, it's good for certain specs. You get what I'm saying. So here's what we're going to do. Oh, by the way, Weak Wars profiles add-on, so you can get it for free off my Twitch if you want to swing by. Let's get into this. So here's what we're going to do. Now, I want you guys to do this for yourself. I want you guys to see this for yourself here. So I'm going to actually unsync my combat log. Let me actually, unmute this a bit here. I'm gonna move my combat log over. So let's do this. We're going to play Aff. We actually already have our imp out. It's perfect. So this target right here, right? Imp attack. I want you to make note of the imp damage attacking this target. Firebolt hits for roughly 786, right? 756, 786, 780. Okay, about 780-ish, give or take a little bit. Let's put up a haunt. Firebolt hits for about 791. Okay, let's stack Shadow's Embrace. Everything's stacked. Haunt and Shadow's Embrace. Firebolt hits for 790. It hits for 756. So there's no buff here to Firebolt's damage from our imp because we have Haunt, our Embrace up. Nothing here. No different. The same as it's always been for a long time. Let's go over to PTR. We're playing Affliction. Perfect. Look at that. Where's my imp summon at? Here we go. So, same thing here. I do have details working on PTR. Everything else is really scuffed because my PTR nameplates and frame rating is just destroyed. That's just how it's going to be. Sorry. It took half an hour to get details working, but here we are. So, all right. Combat logs here. Imp. Attack. Okay. About what, 900, give or take. We're not looking at the raw numbers here. Raw numbers are whatever. They're actually a little lower on live. I don't have a helmet on. I had to take synergy off to show you this. So just look at the consistency here. That's what we're looking at. So back to PTR, about 880 to 917, give or take. Maybe you're feeling spicy. Let's put up a haunt. Next one. What? Let's put up a Shadow's Embrace. How much is this gonna hit for? 1,123. It's not critting. There's no legendary on. There's no stat procs. It appears that Blizzard has stealth buffed Haunt and Shadow's Embrace to affect pet damage now. It might not seem like a whole lot, but this is actually really big. So you have Haunt being roughly a 10% damage modifier, 10% for Aff. You have Shadow's Embrace being 9% baseline. But if you factor in other conduits, well, really Cold Embrace, you're looking at what? I don't know what Cold Embrace is on I guess at this level, like 4%, right? Something like that. What is Cold Embrace? Cold Embrace is 48%. So you're looking at roughly, what, 14-ish%? Roughly a 25% damage increase to your imp's firebolt damage. That's huge. Like, that's massive. Pets make up a decent bit of our damage, and now it's just your imp, but this is actually huge. This is completely undocumented. Nothing has been talked about this at all anywhere. I haven't seen it mentioned anywhere at all. But I said to myself, let's look past Affliction, even though it's the best spec right now. Let's look at Destruction. What does Destruction have? I'm not in combat anymore. What does Destruction have? Oh, for what it's worth, I'm not gonna go back to live anymore. We know that pet buff damage, pets are not affected by buffs on live anymore. I said to myself, what does Destruction have that increases damage? That's Eradication. I hate Eradication. I hate it being a talent, but nonetheless, it has Eradication. So let's pull out the actual imp here. And let's see how this goes. So, yeah. Now, he was hitting for roughly 885 or so as Affliction. Let's put him on this. Attack. Go. Once again, no legendaries here. Actually, here. Let's leave combat. Let's take this off so nothing's being skewed. You can see if it's proccing too, but just take it off. Make it simpler. No procs whatsoever. We're playing cinders, so no synergy here. Imp attack. So he's dealing roughly, he's gonna be dealing about 900 damage, I would assume, give or take, right? 893, 895, 898. Launch the bolt. Yep. You can stop critting. Well, he crit, but you can see the last one. Eradication is also affecting pet damage. Now, this is not just your imp. This span, you can see the damage increase here once again. 938, critting again, a 2000 crit. That's over. That's over a 1000 firebolt. Like or fire. That's insane. Like it's actually insane. You can see. Oh, by the way, Roaring Blaze is not buffing his damage for what it's worth. I'll let this drop. You might be wondering if Roaring Blaze is. Roaring Blaze works like in a whitelist, blacklist kind of way. Basically, the ability has to be picked to be buffed by Roaring Blaze. It said fire damage initially, but it was sort of too confusing. And yeah, so we can conflag here about 900-ish. Hits again for 885. It'll hit again here for about 889. Roaring Blaze is not affecting it. But like I said, it's not, let me build a shard here. It's not just your imp. It affects other pets too. It'll affect your Voidwalker. It'll affect your Fell Hunter. It'll affect your Succubus. I mean, technically, it's every pet that you have. Send them in. He melees for at 457, consuming shadows for 154. Let's build some shards here. 457, 458. Let's see here. All I want to do is launch a bolt. Bolt. What does consuming shadows hit for now? 169. 169, because one of two targets has the eradication 10% bonus damage on it, and the melees are also hitting 10% harder. So technically, with consuming shadows actually being like your only AoE based ability on pets, technically in Destro and Plus, if you don't need an interrupt, this is sort of the same way it is now. But you can have like a Chaos Bolt with eradication, have it deal more damage. It's super minor, but it's actually there. Now this is where it gets really cool. Stay with me, boys. Stay with me here, okay? Destro, not as strong as Aff as far as the raw buffs go. Eradication is 10%, right? You don't have Shadows Embrace. Haunt is 10. Eradication is 10. There's no Shadows Embrace equivalent, right? Demonology. What does Demonology actually have? So, Demo. No real actual like damage increases across the board, right? Oh, wait. But you have from the shadows. This is where it gets really interesting. So I'm going to show you a Tyrant here. We're going to have Soul Strike. All we're going to do is Dreadstalkers into a Tyrant. So no stat procs on. It's the same thing. I'm going to show you a Tyrant, show you what it does demon fire damage wise. I'm going to cut away and cut to another scene where it's off CD, and we're going to swap to FTS. Ready for this? Here we go. We don't have a Felguard out either. No Felguard. Call Dreadstalkers. Tyrant. Tyrant hits for roughly, I think it was like 1800 or so, 1850 with Shadow Flame, or with Demon Fire. And it's Shadow Flame damage, 1850, 1840, 1860, 1866. Okay, let's cut away to when our Tyrant comes back off CD. So keep in mind that the Demon Fires hit for about 1844, 1850. These are crits, but I mean, you know, crits obviously double the actual damage it's going to deal. We are going to swap from Soul Strike to from the shadows. The opener we did last time was just Dreadstalkers into a Tyrant, and we let it loose. So for those of you who don't know what FTS is, it's this. Basically, the target takes 20% increased Shadow Flame damage for 12 seconds. So that's whenever you catch your Dreadstalker. So they're going to jump in here. We're going to go Dogs. We're going to go Tyrant. We're looking for 1850 Dreadfire damage wise here, right? Or Demon Fire damage, right? Dogs, Tyrant. FTS is up. From the shadows is affecting your Tyrant's Demon Fire damage because it's Shadow Flame. And it's not just your Tyrant's Demon Fire damage. You have more abilities than just Demon Fire that are Shadow Flame. You have Demon Bolt, you have Hand of Gul'dan. Technically, you even have Implosion, which I mean, single target wise is not really worthwhile. But you're casting these abilities, and you're casting your Dreadstalkers every 20 seconds roughly. And the debuff FTS on the target lasts 12 seconds. So number one, You're going to be getting a bit of a damage increase to your demon bolts, to your hand of ghoul dance, which is just passive cleave. You can try and dump bolts more during your FTS window. That's advised if you're playing as talent, even like just the dogs build and plus. But number two, this lasts 12 seconds. Now, seeing as how you're going into your dogs before you cast your Tyrant, and Tyrant's about a second and a half cast or so here, give or take, you're going to average, I would say, about 10 seconds worth of FTS coverage when your Tyrant is up. So roughly 65, 66.6, repeating, of course, God, that was terrible, percent uptime on FTS. So you're not gonna, your entire Tyrant's not going to be buffed, but it's dealing 20% more demon fire damage when it actually is. And that's not, I mean, we're not even factoring in the extra health you get from like your Grimoire Felguard, your imps, your extra dogs, your whatever you're playing, your pets you have out. I don't even have an actual pet out right now. I don't have a Felguard out. It's a 20% increase to your Dreadfire, or to your Dreadfire, to your Demon Fire damage, which is actually insane. Now, the one bad thing here is that if you're looking at this from a Demonology perspective, by the way, the Felguard is not affected by this. It's just Shadow Flame damage. Is that you're losing out a bit, or you're losing out on Summon Vile Fiend, right? And Summon Vile Fiend is an important part of Demonology because it's a pet. It shares the same amount of health as your Grimoire Felguard does, and it contributes more to your actual Tyrant. So number one, your Tyrant's not really technically siphoning as much health, but he's hitting 20% harder. So there's a bit of a trade-off there, but you're also not getting the Vile Fiend. You're not getting the extra pet, the damage the pet deals, the extension of the pet, the increased damage on the extension of the pet. So it's a bit back and forth, but this actual change just pushes you, if it's worthwhile, because there's a lot to this build here too, which we're going to get more to in a minute here when we look at logs. This build just pushes you even more into demonic consumption if it ends up being worthwhile. Decon's already your best talent in this row. It's not even close. Nether Portal, like, I mean, even with Nether Portal being a tiny bit better in pure single target sims, it's a 3-minute cooldown, which is twice as long, if not 3 times as long as demonic consumption with or without Wilfred's, that requires you to plant and stand still for 15 seconds, arguably 19 or 18 because you have to summon your Tyrant and then cast after that, which, let's be real here, on a fight in most of Nathria and just raids in general, you don't encounter. You're never going to play this in plus because it's miserable. In Sack Souls, unfortunately, technically this does buff Demon Bolt damage. It's just not relevant. It's too lackluster. Let's take a brief look at logs. Oh, by the way, I should show you the Infernal and the Darkglare and that damage interaction too for Destro and Aff briefly here. Let's do that, and then let's take a bit of a look at logs and try and break down the actual damage amp on all 3 specs here, because this is actually wild. How this was not mentioned, I have no idea. So, seeing as how it affects your Tyrant for Demonology with FTS, Eradication and your Infernal should essentially be the same thing, right? Assuming. Now, I've taken off all my gear for this, barring my ribbon, because hey, it's the best item in the game. So here, let's drop an Infernal. I want you to pay attention to the actual melee damage the Infernal deals and the Immolation Aura damage, right? Actually, let's build a few shards here before we do this, so it's a little easier to launch like 2 bolts at once. All right, we're good. We're at 4 shards. Sure. Let's Infernal. Infernal lands, impact damage, bam. Infernal melee for 111. 112. Immolation Aura 249. Let's launch the first bolt here. Eradication's up now. 494, 112. 256, 258, 254, 112 is dropping. We'll launch another one here. Look, it's basically the same. 112 melees, 256 fire. Or Immolation Aura. It's basically the same thing as it first landed. So it's a bit awkward as to why it doesn't really affect your Infernal, but thinking out loud, it would probably make Infernal Brand gain a pretty significant amount of value, the conduit, if it actually did. Let's look at Affliction though. So it's a bit awkward because we've tested Demo, we've tested Destro, but we haven't really looked at Aff. Now, comparing all 3 specs, it seems like Aff has gotten the best deal here with having Shadow's Embrace around and having Haunt around. And presumably, you would probably presume that, well, I mean, that Haunt and or Shadow's Embrace, one of the 2, would affect I-Beam damage. Let's just Agony a Mob. Let's just pull out our Darkglare. I-Beam, attack. It deals roughly 165 damage. Put up a Haunt. Let's do both. Unfortunately, it's hitting for 159. So it does not affect your Darkglare. It does not affect your Infernal's Immolation Aura or Infernal Awakening damage or melee damage. But the FTS talent does indeed affect your actual Tyrant. Now, there are a lot of conduits, other talents, pieces of gear, builds that can actually build, I guess pun have intended upon this. Let's talk a bit about those, and then like how the actual damage breakdown looks like and how much of a raw DPS gain will actually be for each spec. So now that we've got all the gameplay out of the way, we're back on live here. Starting off with Demonology, which is probably the most interesting thing here. There are, I mean, okay, being real here, we've talked about the Carnivorous Stalker's Conduit. Born of Blood has a bit of synergy because more demonic core procs with FTS means more demon bolt damage, but that's sort of been a synergy that we've had for a while. It's just that FTS really, well, hasn't been in play because, I mean, it's sort of awkward. That might be changing. Tyrant Soul, the thing with this, Tyrant Soul does not affect your Tyrant. It's affecting the pets after your Tyrant. It does give you a charge of demonic core, but not a huge difference here. Fel Commando, exactly the same. The conduit that interests me the most for Demonology with this actual build is Carnivorous Stalkers. So we're talking like an actual demonic consumption build here, more single target based. So Decon gives your dogs a chance to Dreadbite again. Dreadbite applies FTS from the shadows, which is the debuff that increases your Tyrant's Dreadfire damage, or Demon Fire. I don't know why I'm calling it Dreadfire. Either way, keep in mind FTS lasts 12 seconds, about 10 seconds once you summon your Tyrant, because you're going to go, this is going to change the opener, I would assume, for Demonology. If this is worthwhile, it will. If it's worthwhile, 100% it will. Your Dreadstalkers are going to want, you're going to want them to be the last cast you put out before you go Tyrant. Instead of going like, you know, Grimoire, Felguard, Vile Fiend, whatever, dogs into imps, you're going to go like probably Grimoire, Vile Fiend back to 5 shards, like a hand, and then maybe like dogs at the very end. Depending on time and shards, you want them to be your last cast because Dreadbite applies the 20% damage buff. And if that's the sequencing you follow, you're going to have about 10 seconds, which once again covers about 2/3 of your Tyrant. But if you get this conduit to proc and give you full coverage of the Dread or the FTS through the Dreadbite, you're going to get coverage as long as it procs like, you know, a few seconds after the first application of dogs. You're going to get coverage for basically your entire Tyrant. So the question is, well, how much value does this conduit bring? Number one, if it procs and gets you full value to your Tyrant, and number two, just the extra random procs along the way, because once again, it affects more than just Tyrant. It affects Demon Bolt, it affects Hand of Ghoul splash damage, it affects Implosion. Now, pulling up logs here for Demonology Warlocks, I know this is a bit of a scary territory to be in, but it's okay here. Let's go to Barley Tea. Let's go to Caton here. Caton, my boy Caton, let's go here. Number two, sorry buddy, you got beat, but hey, you can redeem yourself. I have confidence in you. So going to his breakdown here, look at the Tyrant damage. It's 33.34%. Let's just say for simplicity's sake here that you end up having your Tyrant active for, or your FTS active for basically the entire time. You have 485,000 damage. I mean, it's basically an extra 100,000 damage to your Tyrant. So instead of 485k, you're looking at roughly what? I mean, 570k, give or take a little bit. Even without the coverage of the last like third of the you know, FTS window, you're looking at what, like 545k, give or take. That's a pretty substantial increase as long as it covers every Tyrant. But the important thing here to keep in mind is that you're losing Vile Fiend. You're losing Grimoire Vile Fiend, or you're losing Summon Vile Fiend because it's on the same row. So you have to factor in roughly, you know, it's not going to be a flat 20% damage increase to Hand of Gul'dan or Demon Bolt because you're not going to have it active every single time you cast them. You can work your Demon Bolts around them. You can not really work your hands around them, and if you're imploding, well, I mean, sure, but not really imploding single targets. But you have to factor in the Summon Vile Fiend damage. If you had permanent uptime here, like I said, you know, with this log here, it would be, I think, roughly 97,000 damage, give or take modifiers, and that's something in itself. I don't want to get into the stamina debate now. It's about, let's say 100,000 damage. Keep it simple, 100k. Vile Fiend dealt 75k. But that's also not including the actual health bonus that it gives your Tyrant for Decon's health siphon. And once again, this is not including the weird health scaling that Demonology is doing right now. I'm just saying off the top of my head, it's actually close. I think it's closer than it seems, but I feel like with your Tyrant having this level of degeneracy now anyways, like, and just Decon being as strong as it is, this is really interesting because even if it's closer, it brings a lot into question. Like, number one, does it change things with Wilfred's? Number two, does it add really any value to the dog legendary? Probably not, because it doesn't really have a lot of synergy there, but there are a lot of small things that can change, right? And I mean, if you're playing dog legendary, if you're playing carnivorous stalkers, it does add a bit of value to the dog legendary. So there's a lot to take into account here, but honestly, let's be real here, man. It's just cool. It's cool. Let's talk a bit about Affliction. So we're probably going to talk about both Affliction and Destro here, actually, because Destro, listen, Destro's cool, it's awesome, but it's probably the least benefiting spec from this, unless there's some weird stuff going on with Demo. I think Affliction gains the most from this actual change, because like I said, number one, Haunt affects the actual pet damage, and Drain Soul with Shadow's Embrace. Now, listen, hey, I wouldn't even put this past them as being some weird change or trying to test for getting rid of Shadow's Embrace, and maybe that being a way that they work around Focus Malignancy or Rapture nerfs. I don't really know. I wouldn't put it past Bliss trying to test something weird out here. Let's be real. Anything that gets us away from Shadow's Embrace now, I'm down for. But regardless, at this current point in time, this version of AF, I feel benefits the most out of all three specs. You've got number one, Haunt. Just 10% damage increase to your pet damage, which is not like how it is on live right now. 10% more, wild imp damage, or not wild imp firebolt damage from your main pet. More, technically it's every pet, like I said. Haunt, 10%. You've got Shadow's Embrace with Drain Soul, or I guess Shadow Bolt, being 9%. But the cool thing is, it's cool, but if you factor in Cold Embrace, that's a 48% increase at 213. Let's just say roughly, for simplicity's sake here, it's 50%, because it's not 226, and there's that. So you're looking at 4.5%. I know how to do math decently, but I mean, hey, just for everybody, here you go. 13.5%. So you're looking at roughly a 23.5% damage increase to your pet. That's huge. That's massive. What gives a damage amp in game right now to your pet? Come on, guys, think. What legendary am I not wearing right now? Synergy. Synergy literally gives your pet a 10% damage increase on a proc. This is like 2 1/3 times as strong as Synergy buff-wise, and it's just permanent. As long as you maintain Haunt, and as long as you maintain Shadow's Embrace. But realistically, your imp is also like a single target based thing too. It's not like AoE. So I mean, Synergy has the same implications for the most part, right? This is actually just insane, and this will stack with Synergy procs as well. Looking at logs, I mean, let's look at a single target fight, right? Let's go Lady Enerva Dark. There's ads here. We'll go Dark Vein. That's fine. How much did his pet actually deal here? It dealt roughly 5 point. Let's find more of a single target boss. And this will vary a bit, obviously, depending on bosses, but I want to see an actual damage breakdown. Sludge Fist. This would be great. Let's see here. How much did his pet actually? This is gonna be skewed actually because the damage amp. Okay, fine. We'll just go Hungering Destroyer. It's fine. Where's Hungering? So on Hungering, I'm going to assume the pet dealt somewhere around like 6-ish%. Let's see here. It dealt, let me drag over here. It dealt 7%. Essentially 7.1%. It dealt 152k. Dude, I mean, like 152k, but I mean, like you're literally, it's 35,000 extra damage that just comes for free. You're not doing anything. It's 35,000 damage that just comes for free, as long as you maintain your Haunt and as long as you maintain your Shadow's Embrace. So let's say at 35k, the total damage you dealt was 2.1 million, right? So you've got this, and let's say you go 35,000. It's roughly what, a 60 to 70-ish damage increase, like raw DPS. This is doing nothing. All you're doing is standing there, just attacking the boss. Like, it's a 65-ish damage increase, just raw damage for doing nothing, Now, I'm not saying this is a change they're going to make to offset, like the Rapture nerfs or whatever they're trying to do, but that's impressive, right? Shifting gears and looking at destruction, not many people really play with Eradication, so it's hard to sort of go through logs here. We can try and scour them briefly to see if anyone's even playing with it, but Eradication is a bit of an interesting playstyle. You're not going to maintain a 100% uptime on Eradication. It'll probably be high-ish, but depending on the fight, but it's not something that's up 100% of the time. like Shadow's Embrace can be for AF on single targets, or I guess like, you know, EP or Implosion, whatever it could be for, you know, Demo locks in, I guess, BFA. It comes and goes. We're not playing with Eradication anymore. We're not playing with, you know, Expedient anymore. Here, there's literally nothing. We find an Eradication parse, roughly. Anybody playing Eradication? Anybody? I really hope this does not push us back into Eradication, for what it's worth. I hope it doesn't. Eradication is not my favorite talent, but no one's playing it. But what I'm getting at here, Affliction has a 25% damage amp to your pet's damage. Demo has 20, but you have to factor in the loss of Vile Fiend, but the actual Demon Fire damage amp on top of other things. And in the end, Destro does have a 10% Eradication damage amp. Not as strong as AF, but let's be real here. Even if, I mean, if you... it's probably somewhere around like a 30 DPS gain, just raw DPS with Eradication. That's super Florida math, rough Florida math off the top of my head, but 30 DPS for free, 60 DPS for free. Who knows with Demonology and the ridiculous scaling that Demo does, free damage. I don't know how this change has been talked about. It's sort of awkward because it feels like the rich are getting richer with Affliction getting, hey, yeah, here's a solid extra free 70 DPS. All you have to do is maintain your Haunt and your Shadow's Embrace, you know? Like, I'm not saying Demonology or Destruction's in a bad spot. It's just that AF benefits the most from this, and AF feels like the spec they're trying to target for a bit of a change or a nerf or whatever, but I don't know. At this point, I assume sometime next week, because we're probably not getting another build this week, we learn if it's intended or not. Either they clarify in a blue post it's intended, or it just vanishes and it's never seen again. But keep in mind, Demonology also got a buff a few days ago with the Dreadstalker's 10% buff. I think that video came out yesterday. There's a handful of things that could be taking place here. There could be like some weird tuning trying to be, I guess, tweaked around like Affliction with like the Rapture nerfs and that being reverted and all that. There's a lot that is at play here, potentially. But either way, I'm amazed, as we talked about. I'm amazed no one found it until now. We'll see. I don't think Lock is bad at this point. I get the question every time, or a million times every day. Hey, is Lock gonna be good in 9.1? I have no idea, but hey, I'll take an extra 60 DPS or whatever. Why not? The rich just keep getting richer, I suppose. Thanks for watching, dudes. Hope this video gave y'all a decent insight into this pretty insane undocumented change. Once again, like 60 to 70 DPS might not seem like a big buff, but it's actually substantial, especially when it comes out of nowhere and it's not some weird tuning effect to you don't normally see things this impactful being undocumented. I have a feeling this is probably not totally intended. I could be wrong, it very well could be, but the fact that your Infernal and your Darkglare aren't affected for AF and Destro, but your Tyrant is for Demo through FTS, and like random things are working and some things aren't, it's a bit suspect to me. But hey, I guess we'll figure it out. Let me know what you guys think of this in the comment section below. I'm super curious to know. Any questions, drop them down there as well. I'll be sure to get back to you. If you guys have PTR downloaded, you can get on there and test it out for yourself. Let me know if you guys find anything else. There probably is a couple interactions I didn't even notice because it's 4:30 in the morning and I want to go to bed. But let me know. Any Weak Wars profiles or add-ons you see here, you can grab for free off my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions anytime, feel free to do so. If you want to see more WoW content and help support the channel, be sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons below as well. Helps out a lot. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll catch y'all again soon on stream. Peace.